Ready to go.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Metropolitan Utilities District Committee meetings and regular monthly board meeting this morning, January 7th, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive. Due to the Governor's Executive Order number 20-36, in response to the surge in COVID-19 cases, in-person meeting requirements of the Open Meetings Act are waived, therefore permitting board members and district personnel the option of participating in today's meeting remotely or in person. This order will be effective through January 31st, 2021. I would like to remind those attending in person at the boardroom today that we must abide with the City Council ordinance requiring that all those present wear a face mask or face covering in indoor public settings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Please continue to be mindful of social distancing. I would like to invite our Vice President of Safety and Security, Shane Hunter, to provide a briefing regarding protocol for all individuals in attendance at the board meeting today in the event of an emergency.
Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security. Good morning. We are located in the boardroom at M.U.D headquarters. For our awareness, we had the primary entrance and exit we came in through this morning. There's also a second exit here. Outside of this door is the main hallway on the first floor. You'll find the fire extinguisher, the first aid kit, and the AED. If there's a medical emergency, 911 will be called from the security desk out front. If for any reason we needed to evacuate this building, in addition to the main exit, we can go out this door here and take two lefts, and we can go out the door right behind the boardroom. After that, we would meet in the garage, in the parking garage to our west, where we'll conduct a head count. That concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Cook. Cook.
Here.
Friend.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
I would like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall of the boardroom. I would also like to announce that this meeting is being broadcast live and will be uploaded to the M.U.D website shortly after the meeting's conclusion. Construction and operations. Mr. O'Brien, capital expenses, please.
Good morning. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction and Interim Chief Operations Officer. Behind tab 6 this morning, we have our capital expenditures letter. There are 9 items on our letter today, 6 of those being annual blanket authorizations. These 6 annual blanket authorizations are very similar to the ones we've taken to the January board in past years. I will be reviewing those 6 because they do involve a significant amount of money. Before I do that, though, I would like to acknowledge lots of our good employees in engineering, construction, accounting, and others who help prepare these. There's a lot of effort that goes into these 6 annual requests, and they do a fantastic job. Having said that, if we look at item number 1 under annual authorizations, this is a request for $1 million for our cross-bore program. We began our cross-bore program in 2011, and to date we have done approximately 72,400 cross-bore inspections. Last year alone we did about 4,900 inspections. Those inspections have yielded approximately 582 actual cross-bores that we've discovered. So the program does work, and we certainly want to continue with it. We do use 2 professional plumbing contractors to do our inspections each year, and we would propose to continue that into 2021. Item 2 on page 1 is our annual request for gas service installations. It's about $13.5 million this year. This request is for all commercial and residential gas service installations in 2021. These do include new installations, replacements, and reconnections. This authorization does cover both work done by M.U.D and by our contracting partner Q3 Contracting. We would expect to install or reconnect approximately 5,900 services in 2021 with this money. And to break it down a little further, there's a little over 2 million identified for replacing leaking services. There's about the bulk of it, 8.5 million, is for replacing old services as part of our infrastructure replacement program. 110,000 is for reconnecting existing services, and we do have about 2.8 million in there for new installations. Item 3 on the bottom of page 1 is our annual request for just under $1.8 million for gas meters and regulators. This request is for material, meters, and labor associated with all customer gas meters and regulators installed in 21. This does apply to new customers and to customers impacted by our infrastructure replacement programs. If we'll turn to page 2, item number 4 at the top, this is our annual request for water service replacements and or connections. It's about $8.5 million this year, and this does cover services impacted by relocation projects as well as infrastructure replacement projects. The bulk of this money, about $7 million, is for reconnections that we'd have in association with our water infrastructure projects. And of that $7 million, about half of that will be done on projects performed by M.U.D. crews, and half will be done by our contractors. There is also about $1 million as part of this request that is set aside for lead service replacements. We do expect that would cover approximately 225 lead. Seeing under the section infrastructure replacement on page 2, item number 1, that is our annual request for gas infrastructure replacement. Again, in 2021, we'll be replacing approximately 40 miles of cast iron gas mains. This is similar to what we've done the last several years. This authorization does cover both work done by M.U.D. crews and our contractor partner, Q3 Contracting. As in the past few years, Q3 will be replacing approximately 25 miles of pipe. M.U.D. crews will be replacing approximately 15 miles of pipe. The Q3 work is divided amongst 7 individual projects, all of which we expect to be completed in calendar year 2021. Like in the past, once we approve this blanket authorization, the individual projects will still be reviewed and authorized by management prior to commencing the work, and we will provide the board regular periodic updates of the projects that are being approved under this blanket authorization. The last annual blanket is number 2 on page 2. It's our annual request for money for the water infrastructure replacement, and it's at $19.5 million for 2021. This will cover 16 miles of pipe replacement, and that is, again, this authorization would cover work by M.U.D. crews as well as our contractors. In 2021, M.U.D. crews are targeted to replace 8 miles of pipe, and our water contractor partners are targeted to replace 8 miles as well. The individual projects, again, will be reviewed and authorized by management prior to the work commencing, and we will provide the board regular periodic updates of the projects that are being approved. Okay, so that was the 6 annual blankets. That's a lot of information. It does total approximately $56.5 million, which is about a 6% increase over last year. And I'll pause here if there's any questions before. I've got 2 more capital expenditures to review briefly. Are there any questions on the annual blankets before I move on?
Corey, I have one. This is Mike McGowan. On number 1, the cross-floor inspection, you said that we'll use 1 or 2 professional plumbing companies. Do you know who they are? Can you name them?
Sure. We have partnered with Backlund Plumbing and as well as Roto-Rooter for several years now, and they do that work for us.
Good. I was glad to hear you say Backlund because they converted their trucks and stuff to CNG a few years back.
Correct.
Thank you.
Hey, Corey, it's Jim.
You bet. Yes, sir.
Just a question. If it was a New Year's resolution for anybody to tune into the M.U.D meetings for the first time, they'd see this is quite a large expenditure. I just want to clarify that all these annual expenditures were approved in the 2021 budget that this board voted on in December, correct?
That is correct. We have gone through and yes, you are correct.
These are all budgeted items.
Yes, sir. They are.
Thank you.
Hey, Corey.
And it's not
You're welcome.
one that we see every month.
Corey, this is
Right.
Kevin.
Right.
Back to crossbores. Now that we've been doing this for quite a while, are you noticing any pattern or any particular area of the district where crossbores are more prevalent than other areas that we can focus on?
Director Kavanaugh, I don't think so. I think because primarily when we find a crossbore, it is because we've gotten into a sewer which none of them are located because they're privately owned, and so I think it kind of follows wherever directional drilling is being done by anybody. The sewers are a potential target. I know Steph Henn is on this call with us, and she's much closer to it. But unless Steph, you feel that there's more to that answer, I don't think there's a particular pattern in Director Kavanaugh.
Okay, thank you.
And certainly, if you think of other questions, please jump in and I'll go back. I do have two other things I want to mention briefly on our letter. Number one, under building plants and equipment, is a capital expenditure request for about $380,000, and this is to implement an application called Business Planning and Consolidation. And BPC should dramatically reduce the time it takes our budget preparers and our finance folks to consolidate and analyze our budget information. And I can certainly attest to how much work goes into preparing our budget, and if there's an application like this that will help streamline that would be a fantastic tool for us. Last, on page 3, item number 2, there is a request for just a little over $1 million to purchase 4 crew trucks. This would be for the cab chassis and the bodies to be used by the construction division. These 4 trucks will be replacing 4 existing trucks that are 12 to 17 years old and have reached the point at which they're no longer economical to maintain in our fleet. I would point out that with these 4 trucks, the district will be seeking reimbursement for up to $240,000 in the form of a rebate from the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality. They have a clean diesel rebate program that these trucks would qualify for. And so because we would be purchasing CNG trucks and replacing diesel trucks, we would be eligible for this $240,000. That's all I have for the capital expenditures letter, and I say that knowing that it totals, well, pushing $60 million. So I'd be glad to answer any other questions if you have any.
Corey, Dave Friend here. I got a quick question for you, and this may be more of a legal question, but I don't know if you've run into this. On the cross-boring, have you had occasion, and I'm sure you're tracking this or our people are tracking it, let's say that there was a company, and we'll call it ABC Plumbing, that went through a certain neighborhood working on sewers, and you find later that there are 2 or 3 or 4 houses on this block, and I'm making this an obvious deal. So if you find that happened, and as they went through and did that, several of our gas lines were hit in that process, do we go after these companies or try to seek any kind of reimbursement if we can determine with some reasonable certainty who did it?
That's a good question, Director Friend. I think, yeah, anytime that, and Mark, if I misspeak, correct me, anytime we know our facility has been damaged and we know who did it, we will pursue a reimbursement for those expenses to repair them. That is correct.
So we are keeping track of, and I don't know if this is a would be like a construction division or legal or claims, we are keeping track of where we do find those?
Yes, yes, and a lot of the ones that we have found have been existing for quite some time, so that becomes almost an impossible challenge to identify who might have done what. But yes, as we go forward on more recent ones, yes, we do track any crossbores we find.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I would like to,
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's Mark.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just a couple of, I want to accentuate what several directors have brought up. The blanket authorizations for gas and water continue on a path that we've set to make sure that our systems are reliable, especially on the water side. It's mostly reliability with over 500 main breaks a year. So I'm happy to see that we're budgeting 16 miles, half our internal crews and half external crews, which is a larger percentage of internal crew work than we've had in the past. Number two, the gas system. It's extremely critical that we keep that path going and beyond that with other gas facilities to maintain a safe, reliable gas system. And for the board that hasn't heard the term cross-bore all that often, to define a cross-bore in simple terms, which I need, sewer laterals, which is the sewer connection from the street to the house, are not marked and they're not able to be located almost all the time, if not all the time. So the new method, and I mean for many years, but the new method of drilling gas mains underground occasionally nicks or penetrates a sewer lateral, causing an unsafe condition. So we've been on a path to fund cross-bore inspections for quite some time. The percentage of cross-bores that we've found in retro remains in the low single-digit percentage, but even one is too many. So it's a tried and true process, and we've been very diligent with it. And we are more careful, and when I say we, not just the district, but our contractors like Q3, we are more careful now to make sure that you don't hit a lateral, even by visual inspection, or that we take care of it immediately. Director Friend, we do keep track of contractors that hit our facilities, especially on the gas side. We do make claims and seek reimbursement, and we do know who the frequent flyers are, if that's what you're getting at. But I appreciate those questions. Thank you, Corey.
You're welcome, Mark.
Are there any other questions for Mr. O'Brien? Hearing none, Mr. Asdemar, please discuss the proposed capital expenditures for property purchase.
Good morning, Steve Asdemar, Senior Vice President. Behind tab 7, you will find a request for capital for the purchase of a property located at 4421 South 76th Circle, or just south of Street and 76th. The purpose of this request is a direct reaction to the ongoing damage occurring to our existing and only construction center located at our operations center at 3100 South 61st Ave. Our current facility is 150,000 square feet, whereas this additional building provides about a quarter of that space. While not an adequate substitute, it will allow the district continued operations until a secondary construction center is erected and/or our existing construction center rehabilitated. The business case supporting the recommendation to purchase this property is cost. To execute a lease would come at a cost to the district of approximately $1.3 million, with no ownership resulting at lease end. Building modifications remain the responsibility of the district. The purchase of the property at an offer of $1.9 million results in no modification to the necessary costs to rehabilitate the existing building to suit our needs, and future ownership of the property to keep or sell in the future will be ours. This is but one component of a larger response plan to protect the district and provide continuity of operations in the short term. which is the duration of the situation we're facing at the construction center, our existing facility, which will last years, while providing a strategic long-term facility plan spanning decades to meet the needs of the district in the future. More details on this will be provided in closed session. Any questions?
Steve, how many vehicles can be parked in this new spot, new space?
But it's, the problem that we face, Mike, is we have a contingency plan in the event that we lose access to the construction center for surface parking, right? But what we have found is we've had a partial evacuation of the construction center is it's not only vehicles, we have many, many business units that work out of that facility. Welders, stores, transportation, our mechanics, service, and we need a place for them to work too. So the short answer to that is it'll be I don't know the number because it depends on the vehicles. We prioritize our vehicles. Our vehicles that store and hold and contain water must be climate controlled, right? And that's going to be our priority. And that would be the priority going forward if we lose complete or full access to the existing construction center. Do we have enough space in that building for our critical capital assets? And my answer is we will find the space for those critical assets. And this is a big part of that. But this is one part of a larger program that we will explain in closed session.
And is our plan to keep this facility, this new facility, until our new construction center is built and ready for operation?
Well, we will reassess then, right? At that point, we have a long-range plan and a short-range plan going into this. If we are provided this capital to purchase this building, we'll have a short-range plan to get us through this situation we're experiencing with our existing facility. But with that, this is part of our larger strategic plan for transportation and our capital assets going forward. So we could go either way.
Okay.
I'm sure it will be much clearer. And I'm not trying to punt the question, but that will be a much easier question to answer 5 years from now.
Yeah, and so there's going to be offices or cubicles or space for employees to work out of too in this building?
Before we occupy the building, yes.
And one other question, it says it will provide 38,000 square feet of shop, garage, and office spaces. How many square feet roughly have we had to close in the operations center because of all the issues with settling?
Well, when you combine the existing construction center and the new part of the construction center, the specific square footage, I'm going to defer to Steph Hann on that one if you're on the call. If you don't mind, Steph. Otherwise, I'm taking a guess. I apologize for putting you on the spot.
No, Steve, that's not a problem. Thanks for the question, Mr. McGowan. Yeah, we are working on that. There is approximately 65,000 square feet, roughly, that we have closed. Some of that we're still able to use in a small capacity, and so this 38,000 square feet of the building on F Street is part of our plan, and the other part of the plan is putting up a temporary building on the op and construction center site. And between the two of them, that's part of our plan to get everybody out there that we need to.
Where are they located now? We've closed that. Where are the people located before we move in?
Great question. Thanks for that. They're actually kind of spread out all over the place. Like our construction welders, we've been able to move them to another part of the construction center, and they're working out of there. The field service welders also, we were able to relocate them to a different part of the construction center, the existing construction center. Our carpenter, we moved him to one of the pump stations. We just kind of have been finding places for these folks, but they're working in temporary facilities, and so this building on F Street would give them more of a permanent home for a while.
And this question is for Mark Mendenhall. Are the discussions going on with the city still about helping us pay for this new space that we had to rent or find because of the settling issues?
Yes, good morning, Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President for Council. To answer that question, yes, I would say that discussions are ongoing with two entities. One, our carriers, and those discussions are related to the claim that has been filed against our policy. And then two, discussions are ongoing with the city of Omaha, and I would describe those conversations as positive at this point. And I expect the discussions actually as soon as next week with the city of Omaha department.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, just a quick question for you. Time is of the essence, obviously. Any idea, if the board approves this expenditure, any idea of when we will be able to get our employees into this facility?
Thanks, Director Begley. Yes, I agree. Time is of the essence. The building is in a condition, it was built in the 60s is when it was erected, and it has suffered from deferred maintenance. It is in a condition in which it requires significant rehabilitation. There will be significant capital necessary to bring this building up to a condition that would be acceptable to house our people, our capital assets, and do the district's work. That's being estimated right now. We expect that to be back next week. So at that point, we will know the cost and the timeline. Then I'll be in a better position to answer that question. But it will be, it's not a matter of a coat of paint and a little joint compound. There's going to be some significant improvements necessary on that building.
As you've proven with the building that I'm currently sitting in, you do good work in a short period of time, so we know we have the right person on the job.
Our group of people responsible for that. Thank you.
One last question. You said significant capital to get it up to condition to move in. That's not part of the request here, the 2.26 million, is it, or is it?
It is not. It is not. And I would go so far to say on just this initial blush that we'll be challenging the purchase price in rehabilitation fees, but that's a guess.
Steve, maybe you can't know at this point, but any projection how long we would actually be in this property until we would vacate it?
So, and I'll provide more details later, but I'm working off a 5-year timeline for us to come back around to address what we're going to do with this facility. And I think that would be a fairly optimistic timeline based upon the situation we're having with the construction center, the existing one, our plans for the second construction center, which we actually haven't closed on that yet, let alone surveying, got all of our permits, or started grading, let alone dig a footing and start construction. The plan isn't complete yet on that yet. So an optimistic timeline would be 5 years before we came back around to decide what we're going to do with this building. And I would say that's at a minimum.
Question. Is a good share of this 38,000 going to be used as open space for vehicle storage?
Yes, it's the former home of a crane company. So it does, high ceilings and strong floors for our equipment. And that, as we have gone through the surrounding area looking for a space, that was a weak spot. There's retail space, there's 4-inch floors, 5-inch floors. There's a lot of buildings we couldn't have vehicular access to, and most of them didn't have a floor significant enough to hold our equipment. And this fits the bill that way. Plus, there is not a lot of available industrial properties of this nature available right now.
How much of that 38,000?
Excuse me, Mr. Osmore, this is Mark Mendenhall. We were not able to hear that last question that was asked. Would you be so kind to repeat that?
Oh, okay, that's better. Yeah, how much of that space of 38,000 will be utilized for open storage space for vehicles?
Did you hear my answer, Mark?
Okay. Yes, I did. I just couldn't hear Director Frost's question. Thank you, Director Frost, for repeating that. I appreciate that.
Understood.
Okay.
This is the property we settled on, and I don't know the exact number of properties we visited and sampled prior to this, and this one fits the bill. And there's not many. I don't know what Plan B would be. I'm not trying to press the board into approving this, but this has been a challenge to the group responsible for it.
And Steve, I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, sorry, Director Begley. Mark Mendenhall again. I just wanted to add, my understanding was that the task force visited approximately a dozen properties, and that there were certain characteristics of those properties that we were looking for, as Ms. Osmore had mentioned, i.e. we're looking for a certain size of a building, so a certain square footage, but that square footage to be usable, and so we need to have open space in order to fit. And so he had mentioned some of the vehicles. For example, we've got, I think our longest vehicle is 52 feet with a trailer, and so we've got to have a longer span of a structure to fit that type of a vehicle. In addition, those vehicles are very heavy, and we need a certain thickness of concrete in order to hold that vehicle. And then finally, we need to get the vehicles in and out. And so a certain size of a garage door in order to drive a vehicle in and drive a vehicle out. And of the dozen properties that we had looked at, really this was the one that fit all of those criteria. We had discussions with the property owner about leasing this building, and so maybe more for a temporary period of time. And the owner of the building was engaging with us in that discussion for a lease. But then, as Mr. Osmore had indicated, when you're looking at a 5-year time frame, the numbers make more sense to purchase and own the asset as opposed to just paying in a rental rate which would include taxes, real estate taxes, for that 4 or 5 year period of time. And then finally, I believe it was at the November board meeting when we were informed by our commercial real estate broker helping us through this, that the owner had received a verbal offer to purchase that building from a third party. And so that left us thinking, okay, we're going to lose the opportunity to secure this building if we don't, because now they're not willing to entertain a lease discussion because they've got an offer to buy it. So we made the decision at that point to secure it under contract, in this due diligence process, and then have the discussion with you all after we're more comfortable with what the building can offer us. And so right now I would say we're still in the due diligence period. That period will expire on, I believe it's January 25th. And so our team will have to make a decision on whether or not to close on that building by that period of time. And so this is the recommendation for you all to approve it at the purchase price of 1.975. The recommendation of the 225 also includes costs to close and costs to have a contractor do some initial inspections on the building, so we're ensuring what we're buying. So hopefully that adds a little bit more context to the conversation. Thanks, Director Begley.
Sure. And my question is, obviously we're concerned about the equipment and the infrastructure, but obviously our employees have been incredibly impacted by this. How many employees are being displaced because of the damage that's been done to the construction center that will ultimately be relocated to this new facility?
Good question, thanks. That plan has just been created, and it's being created now as we're going down this process. And if I could have, again, I'm going to defer to Steph Henn because she's leading that effort on that ad hoc group's behalf.
You bet, Steve. Thanks.
Thanks.
Can you repeat the question just so I cover everything?
Sure, Steph. I'm just curious as to how many employees are being impacted by the mess at the construction center and how many would be displaced to the new facility should the board agree to the purchase today.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bagley. Roughly about 35 of our employees right now are displaced. And so like Mr. Osmore said, we've been looking at any folks we can get into this building at on F Street. And we think roughly it's going to be about 40. And so what we've been doing is comparing the amount of square footage that those folks have now, folks like our electricians and our carpenter and our blacksmith folks, our machine shop folks, who are all folks who have been displaced right now. So we're looking at the square footage they currently have and how much they need in the new building. So we roughly think about 40 people will be located at this facility along with their equipment and their vehicle. So it's still a work in progress, but that's where we are about right now.
Okay, thanks. And I just want to convey that I know this has become a safety issue for them, but I'm sure it's also a morale issue for them as well, having to have their work site upended and to be relocated. I just want to convey my sincere thank you to them for what the bad situation they've been put in, and for everybody like Steve and Steph and everybody who's addressing their needs as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We really had a lot of folks who are rolling with the punches, and that says a lot about our employees.
Thanks, Steph.
You bet.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Osmore. Moving along here, Ms. Henn, please review the acceptance of contracts.
Thank you. Good morning. Stephanie Henn, Director of Plant Engineering. I will be addressing the finals letter, which is behind tab 8 this morning. We have 5 finals this month. One is a gas IR project, one's a water IR project, and we have 3 development water projects. I will be briefly highlighting 4 of these 5. Starting with item A on page 1 is a large gas project with Q3 Contracting. Q3 has been our gas IR partner since 2012. This was a large project, approximately $4 million worth, near I-480 and Center Streets. There were additional unit quantities on this project of about $169,000, which was only a 4% increase on the whole project. And as a part of this large gas project, we abandoned 12 miles of gas pipe. So we're working very hard on our gas IR work. Item C on page 2 with Hawkins Construction. Hawkins Construction was one of our new water IR contractors in 2020. This was an approximately $864,000 project in the 108th and Taylor area. We had a decrease in unit quantities of actually about $31,000. The project came in under, and on this project we were able to abandon about 2/3 of a mile of water infrastructure, cast iron water pipe. Item D on page 2, TJ Osborne. This was a large development project. This is one of the large data centers down in Sarpy County. We actually had a decrease on some of the quantities and an increase due to a change order due to some fiber cabling that was in the way, but there was a net decrease on the project of about $32,000. I also wanted to mention item E on page 2 with Cedar Construction. This was a water development project near 192nd and Dodge. Normally I probably wouldn't have highlighted this one, except this is the second PVC project that we are finaling. We've only done 2 PVC development projects on the water side so far. PVC is plastic. It's still a new material for us, so we're still learning things. PVC, since it's plastic, it's lighter, it's a little bit faster to install, and we expect some savings over time due to the fact that plastic pipe does not corrode.
Stephanie?
And at that point, yes, please.
On that item number E, Cedar Construction, it's the first PVC project we've used. How much experience does Cedar Construction have using PVC in their projects and doing it?
Actually, quite a bit. Thanks for that question, Mr. McGowan. Outside of for us, we typically put in ductile iron, or we have over the last many years. But Cedar does work for a lot of other folks, and like the city of Lincoln primarily puts in PVC. So Cedar does work for them. They work for other entities like Papillion and some other folks. So they've done a fair amount of it. Cedar also does work on the sewer side, which tends to be mostly PVC. So they've had quite a bit of experience with it. This is just a little bit different because it's pressure pipe, and but they've done pressure pipe for other entities.
Great. Well, thank you.
You bet. And at that point, I'll be glad to take any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henn. Mr. Zellers, please review the bids.
Good morning. John Zellers, Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 9. There are a few items that I'd like to discuss this morning, and the first may be found on page 1. We accepted bids to replace 2 wholesale water meters and vaults at 2 distribution points into Carter Lake. We only received 1 bid in which it exceeded the engineer's estimate by approximately 51%. Engineering is reevaluating the design, which we will either conduct the work in-house or rebid, and at this point we are recommending rejection of the bid from Judd's Brothers. The next item may be found at the top of page 3. We are recommending the second low bid from OneNeck for a 3-year Cisco SmartNet support contract. The low bid submitted by Sterling did not include support for all of our Cisco network equipment as we requested. As part of this contract, future purchases of Cisco-related projects will be made through OneNeck, as they will be the preferred provider in which Cisco will give them the best pricing for district-requested Cisco products. The next item may also be found on page 3.
Sorry to interrupt on that last one on the Cisco SmartNet. The $280,000, is that the total for 3 years? Is that $280,000 a year for 3 years?
That is the total for 3 years.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. The next item may also be found on page 3. Truck Center was the only bidder for the 5 crew trucks, cab, and chassis that Mr. O'Brien spoke about. Truck Center is a Freightliner dealer and has provided district with these types of chassis and other larger CNG vehicles in the past. The last time we purchased this cab and chassis was in 2017, in which Truck Center was the only bidder at that time as well. Their bid represents a 1.2% annual increase over their 2017 bid and is recommended for approval. Lastly, on page 4, we are asking for approval of 4 annual contract extensions in which the bidder agreed to hold current pricing through the extension period. Included in those extensions are those for Roto-Rooter and Backlund for the cross-bore programs that were discussed during Mr. O'Brien's presentation. And that's all I have for you this morning. I would be happy to answer any questions. All right, thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Zellers? Hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. O'Brien. Please review the main extensions for us.
Okay, good morning again. I need to find my map I'm going to share. There we go, it should be coming up. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction and Interim Chief Operations Officer. Behind tab 11, you'll find our main extensions letter for the month. Excuse me for a second. You can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure before I proceeded. Behind tab 11 is our letter for the month. We have 5 water projects this month. The impact of those 5 projects being 214 single residence lots, 2 multi-residence lots, and 1 commercial lot. And if you look at the map, you will see that our 5 projects are distributed amongst 4 of our district subdivisions. I'd like to briefly mention a few of these. If you'll turn to page 2 of the letter, items 1 and 2, I will just mention that these are straightforward development projects, and developers for both projects have requested M.U.D gas for their developments. Item number 3 is a 16-inch main extension that we are requesting funding for. It's going to be about $308,000 of district money. This will install approximately 1,170 feet of 16-inch main, which is just under a quarter mile. This is an important piece of main for our distribution system. Once it's installed, this will complete a transmission main that runs east and west across pressure zone 3. We currently have only 1 such transmission main that crosses the entire pressure zone 3 from east to west, and this will provide a second one. This piece of main has been, the installation has been deferred until this time because we are coordinating our work with County Road Improvement Project at that location, and this helps to decrease the chances that we'll have to relocate in the future. One nice benefit of this project is, as the district is the pioneer for this piece of Maine, going forward, we do have the ability to recover about 72% of our expenditure, which would be $224,000 as development connects to this main. Item 4 on the bottom of page 2, I would just simply mention 2 things. Again, it's a straightforward development project. The developer has requested M.U.D gas for this project, and this project is being installed under our WCD policy, and again, that just means that the developer is contracting the installations of the mains themselves. The last project on page 3 I will mention, this is a main extension to provide domestic water service and fire protection to the Windsor East subdivision at 174th and Giles Road. This development requires a 12-inch main in Giles Road, and that's about 3,500 feet of 12-inch main. The management's recommending that we oversize this 12-inch main to a 30-inch main for our distribution system needs and to move water from Flat West to the area between Gretna and Papillion. This would be at a district cost of approximately $1,080,000. Unlike the other project where the district is the developer pioneer, we are not in this case. So this $1 million will not be eligible for reimbursement. However, the funding for this type of project is done through our collection of impact fees. That's all I have on the main extensions this month. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Sabine, please review employee wage and salary increases and ratifications.
Thank you, Director Howard. Good morning. Bonnie Sabine, Vice President, Human Resources. I'll begin by recapping employee counts for the end of December 2019, age 20. December 31st of 2019, we had 810 regular full-time employees and 4 regular part-time employees for a total of 814. To end this past December, there were 809 regular full-time employees and 4 regular part-time employees for a total of 813 regular employees, as well as 1 regular full-time employee at the end of the year. A review of our jobs that are actively in various stages of the job placement process includes 1 job requisition that is currently routing through the approval process, 5 jobs that are posted presently, 10 jobs that are with managers for application review or interviews in those stages, and 3 jobs that have selected candidates, and they are in the process of background checks, drug screens, setting their hire dates, etc. We do have 2 new hires for this Monday, coming up Monday. Job placements do continue with our safety measures in place during the pandemic, and we also continue to monitor the impact of the pandemic on our personnel. Just a few brief notes on that. December brought about half as many new cases of COVID-19 as November, which was very good news for our staff. We also continued to see employees recover from the virus and currently have only a handful of active cases impacting our workforce. As the end of the year approached, employees were provided additional communications through district email and the M.U.D Connect intranet and directly through division supervisors to provide them information about the transition of COVID-19 resources and benefits into the new year, as well as remind them of our existing safety measures and policies to help address the ongoing pandemic. But the safety and well-being of our employees, their families, and our community remains a priority. Any questions before I get to the letter? Go ahead, Mike.
Did you say how many employees currently have the infection? I didn't hear if you said how many.
I didn't. I just said a handful.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Bonnie, this is Gwen, and I have a question for you. Has there been discussion regarding the possibility of our employees, M.U.D. employees, being put on a priority list for the vaccination? I would consider the M.U.D. employees and any of the utility employees to be priority individuals.
Absolutely. We do have a team addressing that. I can certainly offer for Mr. Osdemore, if he would like to address that, what our vaccine team has been working on, or I could certainly give you a few sentences as well. But I'm not sure if Mr. Osdemore is there and would prefer to take that as our incident commander on the pandemic team.
Well, who's been discussing it? Have you been discussing it with Mr. Osdemore, and has he followed up?
Yes.
Well, maybe you can just give us that report. Either one would be fine.
I'll start us off, Bonnie, and then if you want to take it from there and give you some background where we are. So initially in 2017, during the development of our business continuity program, essential personnel within areas critical to the fulfillment of the M.U.D. mission on an ongoing basis during an untoward event were identified. That it was part of the process. This was revisited during this COVID-19 pandemic to categorize our personnel while we endeavored to secure our quote, place in line, which everyone was jockeying for better position through the entirety of this event, and they continue to do so. And we wanted to make sure we secured our place in line immediately once the vaccine was available, which it's becoming available. Our efforts have now turned to procurement, distribution, and administration of the vaccine to district personnel, including securing a 1B designation for our essential workers. As evidenced by the document in my hand by the state of Nebraska, most currently we are in Tier 2 1B prioritization, and I will stress that our position on this list has changed 3 times in 11 days. We have also partnered with a local pharmacy for distribution and administration on district property, and Ms. Sabine will provide details on that. These efforts are currently underway. We have adopted the widespread effective vaccination of our region to be the triggering event toward transitioning to the end of this pandemic. One of the most critical components of an effective vaccination process is education and awareness to provide specific details on the vaccine and process to address fears, apprehension, and bias towards the process. This is being done based upon the details we have available, and it will continue. As of today, we are optimistic that vaccinations will begin in March. That this is difficult to guarantee, so the efforts of our folks will persist until we can declare this event over. And I will, of course, provide a lot of acknowledgement, much acknowledgement to everyone involved in this process, because we are approaching a year. February 5th, we started this path preparing for this event, and we're closing in on a year. Our next board meeting will be a year of pandemic. So, Bonnie, if you want to take it from there. Unless you have any questions.
I do. Would this be up to the individual to pursue when it gets to M.U.D's turn in line? Or would there be a massive vaccination effort maybe on site at our facilities?
Both. So right now it's going to be, part of it is we have to identify who's going to get the vaccine. Because of our 820 employees, that number changes, right? Not everyone is potentially determined critical to the fulfillment of the mission by the criteria established by the federal government. That being said, we need to know exactly who those people are. For example, systems, dispatch, our plants for the safe and uninterrupted distribution and production of gas and water. That being said, we've partnered with the pharmacy. Our hope is to get it administered on-site, on location, on a voluntary basis. There are many employers that are discussing about forced compliance, mandated vaccinations, and we are addressing that through education, awareness piece, and combating the biases associated with the procedure, the politics, and the process, and the actual vaccine itself. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, it does.
Okay. You want to take it from there, Bonnie?
I will. Thank you very much, Steve. So, as Mr. Osdemore mentioned, we do have a number of steps in place. We do have a committee that has been meeting, and some of our next steps besides education and communication to the employees will include identifying those employees that are interested in receiving the vaccine when it is available. That will be one step in the process, but as Mr. Osmore mentioned, we are also working with our division heads and our managers to identify those critical staff so that we can prioritize and be prepared when the vaccination is available to us. We are certainly working directly with the pharmacy that we have identified that can partner with us. We have had multiple conversations with them over the last week, and they are prepared, and they have been conducting some on-site vaccination clinics for first responders. So they are already in touch with Douglas County Health. They are prepared and capable of obtaining the vaccine, storing it, and then administering it for us. And they are certainly willing to come on site. The last thing that I would mention is that we are working with our communications team, and we are putting together those educational pieces for the employees to help be as transparent as we possibly can about the process we are taking to administer the vaccine when it is available, as well as educate them a little bit on the vaccine and the process. So we do have a frequently asked questions piece that will accompany that question, but we really do want to hear from each and every employee, and we are going to be working with our supervisors to ensure that we do get those responses from every employee, whether they say yes, they would accept the vaccine, no, they would decline it, or perhaps they are undecided at this time.
Hey, Bonnie, how does the process work? Do they reach out to the district, or does the district have to make application?
Yes, we actually do have a pharmacy that we are working with will make the request for us so that they can be provided the vaccine. It would be released directly to them. But again, we recognize that we have to have a couple of things in place for when that time comes, and that is a list of critical or essential employees that we would need to distribute to first, but all employees that are interested will be on our list, but we will need to prioritize that list. And then second, we do have to have a means for obtaining, storing, and distributing, which is why we've made early contact with that pharmacy partner.
Okay, I was just wondering if it just magically happens where they contact us, or do we have to go through a process to say, we want this, okay, we will let you know when it's available. Is that how it works?
We have already had our pharmacy partner engage DHHS on our behalf, but we also have Eric Ploutz, Shane Hunter, Mr. Osmore. They are keeping close watch on this, and they are attending some additional meetings where they can keep track of our status and what priority status the district is in. And so we're starting those communications now in an effort to be in line when it becomes available to district employees.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want reports from board members or anybody else that's already had their vaccine?
Well, we can certainly follow up with you outside of the meeting, but yes, our board members and all of our employees will be.
I've already had it, so I thought maybe you might want to have a record of that.
Thank you, Director Frost.
Well, and this is Gwen. I would anticipate that this would be handled similarly to the flu vaccination, the shingles vaccination, which was done in the facility over off 60th Street. When I was over there, it seemed to me that was well received. People were coming in to get those shots, and Coles was administering them, a representative from Coles, hopefully a nurse. And I would assume it would be, you're talking about Coles again to do this?
We are. Gwen, this is Steve Osmore again, if I may, and just to add a little more detail, yes, Bonnie's group has partnered with Kohl's, Coles, from this point forward, will work directly with the Douglas County Health Department to secure our vaccines, and then HR and Bonnie's group specifically will work with Coles to get those vaccines to our people. Up until this point, our Instant Command team has been working with the state and Douglas County and Sarpy County Health Departments through the EOCs. So this isn't this hasn't been in the last couple of weeks. This has been since the onset, and since we saw the light at the end of the tunnel that vaccines were going to indeed be delivered as promised. We really ramped up our efforts to make sure that we secured our place in line.
Can you keep the board informed of how this is progressing?
Sure.
I think that would be really helpful to all of us. Are there any other questions for Bonnie?
Hey, Bonnie, it's Jim.
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, I just make sure that I get to the wage and salary letter before we jump to the end of the meeting.
Sure. This is code related. And I know in previous meetings, we've discussed the gray area of employees who may be newer to the district, who, I know there are different pots of COVID leave for those that may be near or have exhausted all their COVID leave. And that puts them in that predicament of, I might have been exposed, but I don't have leave. Do I come into work? How are they dealt with? Are they accommodated if they choose to miss work? Is there discipline for how? I know it's a vague question, but I fully understand that the challenge of dealing with this from the HR perspective, but how is HR dealing with those employees? And this might be a similar question that I've asked previously, but it has been stressful for employees, I know, trying to decide what to do.
I appreciate the question. We actually do have a couple of things that are helping us at this particular point in time. So first, let me say, an employee that has been identified as having exposure, perhaps having symptoms and no exposure, or maybe both, or they have tested positive. That employee is put in contact with our case manager, and once the employee has been identified as having one of those particular situations, a communication is provided to the supervisor as well as human resources to ensure that they are coded as some type of pandemic leave or pandemic code, or at least if they do exhaust those hours of paid leave, that they are not coded in an absence manner that would count against their attendance criteria. So there is no discipline if an employee has gone through the right process and has communicated with the case manager to identify their related to COVID. But two positive things that have helped our employees, all employees, including those newer employees. One, we are still using the CDC guidelines to help identify quarantine periods. And the quarantine period for those employees who may have had exposure without symptoms has been reduced. So we do follow that rule of testing after 5 on or after the 5th day of exposure, and release after 7 days if they continue to have no symptoms. So that is a positive for those employees. The second thing is that the district's paid time benefits are not earned on a per period basis. They are earned in total on January 1st at the beginning of the year. So all employees that were hired last year get their full vacation allotment as well as their sick leave allotment and 2 floating holidays as of January 1st. So if they were to exhaust their paid pandemic leave, once again, the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act did expire December 31st. The Consolidated Appropriations Act was passed, but it did not mandate that employers continue to offer those 80 hours into the new year. Not a new bank of hours, but those that had not used it or used all of it would that still be available? The district made the decision before the Consolidated Appropriations Act even passed that we would continue to roll those hours into the new year. I believe we communicated that December 9th to our employees, and again, before the end of the year, to remind them those 80 hours are still there. But again, I fully understand your question. Newer employees in their first year of hire have little to no paid time off. So we are unfortunately, this has continued on into 2021, but those employees have received their paid benefits to help supplement the exhaustion of pandemic leave, if they choose to use it. We are also offering for those employees to retain their paid time, and they are allowed to choose unpaid time. But again, we've had oh goodness, sorry, apparently I hadn't moved in my office long enough and the light went out. Sorry about that. We have really just had a handful, I don't even think 6, that have chose to take the unpaid time, or maybe right about 6. So the unpaid time impact has been very minimal to our employees, and that's something that we have strived to achieve.
Thanks, Bonnie, and it's 9:20, so the CDC may have changed the guidelines while we've been in here. So it's a constant, talking to Mr. Osmore and Mr. Kavanaugh about how those guidelines have changed on a weekly, if not daily basis. So I fully appreciate that it's a challenge and a juggling act, so thank you.
Hey, Bonnie, did you say, now, just to clarify for me, do our employees get another 80 hours starting in January for 2021?
They do not get a new 80 hours, but the 80 hours that began last March on the 18th when we communicated that, if they have not used any or all of it, whatever balance they had from 2020 will be available to them in 21 until the pandemic is concluded.
In other words, it carries over.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, my last item then, behind tab 12, you will find the wage and/or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 8 employees this month. Well, truly, it's a total of 10. 5 employees are being promoted through the posting process. Those are OAC employees. 3 OAC employees are being promoted through the natural progression process. Additionally, we have 1 OAC employee that is being promoted into an SPA position. And we have 1 new hire ratification for the month of December. Do you have any questions on the letter?
Are there any other questions for Bonnie?
Nope.
Nope, not hearing any. Thank you, Bonnie. Do any of the board members have any further comments? Not hearing any. Moving along. Due to the COVID-related precautions, members of the public have access to the meeting, excuse me, via a WebEx connection that is set up in a conference room adjacent to the boardroom at the headquarters building. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board? And if so, please indicate your intentions to the moderator. Sophia, is there anyone there?
Mr. Catalano is with the room in the public for Ms. Winfrey, and Pat, we cannot hear you. I understand there are no public in the conference room this morning.
All right, thank you. The committee meetings have now concluded. We will convene in 10 minutes at 9:33. Thank you. now 9:33, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mary, could you do roll call, please?
Right now.
Now?
She asked you for roll.
Oh. Cook?
Mary, roll call, please.
Okay. Cook?
Here.
Friend?
Here.
Frost?
Here.
McGowan?
Here.
Howard?
Here.
Kavanaugh?
Here.
Bagley?
Here, Madam Chair, Mary's tardiness is my fault. My bad. I was chatting with her.
I'd like to advise those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall of the Legislative Chamber. I would also like to remind those in attendance today that this meeting is being broadcast live. And now for those who wish to participate, we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic for which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The approval of the minutes of the committee meetings, the public hearing, and the regular board meetings for December 5th, 2019. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Did we get a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
We will now take up agenda item number 5, the 2021 election of the new board chairperson and vice chairperson. As the current chairperson, I would like to take the prerogative of making the motion to nominate Tanya Cook for the chairperson seat. I've known Ms. Cook for a number of years now. She's a person of high integrity. She served 8 years in our legislative branch and was known as a bridge builder and a person who worked well with others and got the job done. I'm proud that she is among us here on the board. I know it's a personal sacrifice of her time and her abilities, but she has served us well. She's made it a priority to work on issues of inclusion and discrimination, family issues, and to move us forward as we advance in the 21st century. And I'd like to take a moment to give Ms. Cook the opportunity to speak.
That is so kind of you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have enjoyed my time serving on the board, continuing to represent the interests of the ratepayer owners and the workers for Metropolitan Utilities District. And I do take it very seriously that while we are, of course, prioritizing fiscal responsibility and sustainability of the organization as a business, we are also elected public officials who are expected by the people who elected us to represent their interests first and foremost. So I appreciate your nomination. I will decline it at this time. I've recently, in learning the ropes over the last 18 months, have learned that there are some ropes that are written down and some that are procedural and practiced. It's not new in institutions throughout history, but I'm just learning about those. So I appreciate, again, your nomination. I've appreciated the support of the board and the staff as a whole in my time since joining. And while I look forward to taking over the board chair in the future, I will decline the nomination at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Cook. Thank you for your consideration of taking the position. Do we have any other nominations?
Yes, this is David Friend here, and I nominate Mike McGowan for chair.
I second that.
Any comments?
Yes, this is Tim. I want to express my gratitude to Tanya. Very gracious and understanding. Traditionally, this board has rotated the chairmanship. Typically, it's at the last year of your term. When I was appointed in 1999, midway through a term, my spot came up in 3 years, and I was informed at the time that typically new board members that are appointed wait until the end of their term that they've been elected for, which I understood because there's so much to absorb and learn. So the first time I really was nominated and felt comfortable was 9 years. I don't suggest 9 years for everybody. I think serving a term is a good practice. I think it furthers our collegiality that I've enjoyed so much over the years, where we all work together and respect each other. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Director Kavanaugh. Are there anyone else that would like to discuss this?
I just want to point out, Madam Chair, I want to thank you for the great job you've done in 2020, guiding us through an unprecedented series of events, different meeting locations, different logistics, making sure directors, management, the public can all be accessible, can all have their voices heard, and in some cases seen, although I chose not to have a camera done when I was calling in remotely. And Vice Chair Cook, I want to thank you also. You've been a great addition to the board, and look forward to many years of working with you and with everybody on this board. And previous discussion I had before the meeting with Director Friend and Director Kavanaugh, this board has always prided itself on being collegial, and we work well together. And at the start of this new year, especially what we witnessed yesterday, I want to make sure that we maintain our good relationships, our ability to communicate well with each other, and to move this organization forward on a good note. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. I certainly couldn't have done this without the support of the board members and the encouragement of board members prior to taking this position. But I've learned a lot. I'm very grateful. I've appreciated the opportunity. Thank you.
I just want to add, Gwen, that you've always been very good at respecting the feelings of others, and always went out of your way to make sure you were doing it the right way and the right thing. And like Jim said, past year has been the most challenging for a board chair, probably, in, I don't know, maybe ever. But every year there just seems to be something that's unusual, whether it be selling headquarters, moving into a new building, or the virus. So you've done a great job, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Kind words. And you've always been a bit of a mentor to me, if I can say that. And I've appreciated sitting by you when you would nudge me at things I should be more aware of. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Director Kavanaugh. Is there any other discussion? Mary, could we have a roll call, please?
Cook?
Not voting.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Aye.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Present and not voting.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
President not voting.
Moving along, we will now take up the election of the board vice chairperson. Do we have a motion?
David Friend here. Yes, I nominate Jack Frost.
I'll second that.
like to second that too, but it's already been done. Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just look forward to Jack serving as vice chair. I've served with Jack for almost a decade now, and Jack's been a stalwart member of this board for 36 years. Is that right?
35.
35.
I'm in my 36th year.
Jack's in his 36th year, so I'm glad to second the motion for Jack to be vice chair.
I have one other discussion item. Thank you, Mr. Bagley. Typically, when we've met in person, we've never had one of these change of leadership in the board virtually, so I guess I'm asking Mr. Mendenhall, typically after the election of the chair, then the new chair takes over, and I don't know if we're going to do that before we get to item 6, 7, et cetera. So I guess I'm just looking at the other board members. Typically, the new chair takes over. I don't know if Mike's prepared to do that now that he's been elected chair remotely, if he's prepared to do that or not. So I guess I'm opening up for discussion now before we get to the vote on the vice chair.
I am prepared, Dave.
Can we continue with the motion that's on the floor, even though Mr. McGowan's now the chair?
We do need to move forward with the motion prior to outside discussion. And I'd like to say I've appreciated Director Frost so much. I've appreciated his good humor and his ability to address any situation, no matter who brings up the question. He's very nonpartisan. And in this era, especially after viewing what happened yesterday, I have a deep appreciation of his ability to work with whoever it is, whatever party they come from, whatever your background. He's open to you, he will help you, he will give you advice, and I deeply thank him.
The only issue I have is with Jack's ringtone and the duck quacks. I'm not an Oregon Duck fan, I'm an Oregon
Good
State
point,
Beaver
Director
fan.
Kavanaugh, good point.
I'll get past the quacking again.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Mary, roll call, please.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Aye.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Mark Mendenhall, do I take over now, or does Gwen continue?
In times past.
Yes, Director, Chair McGowan, yes, if you're prepared, then we can move right into the C&O items behind tab 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we do have the new board committees set up as well that we had provided to you all. And so if you are the chair of one of those committees, then if you could be prepared to address the letter as Chair McGowan addresses your item.
Okay, I am prepared to go forward. First of all,
I would hand you the gavel, but we're not near enough.
yeah, hand it over the computer, will you? I am prepared, and the first order of business as chair this year in 2021 is to echo Director Jim Bagley and thank Ms. Howard and Ms. Cook for their leadership throughout this past year. Like Jim said, 2020 was unprecedented. We had a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, having to react to many, many challenges. And I thank you for your leadership and all that you've done moving this board forward. I will pledge to do my best to continue the direction that you have set this board on and to continue following up, doing the great work you guys have done. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, item number 6. Dave, do you take that?
Yeah, typically in times past, my understanding was the committee assignments did not take effect if you were chair of a committee until February. So I'm assuming we're going down the same role as we did for our 2020 assignments until the February meeting, which means I've got C&O and S&E. So if everybody's agreeable to that, I will handle those.
No objection, Mr. Friend.
Thank you, Judge Begley.
Mark Mendenhall, the message I got from you was that everyone was pretty much status quo on the committees for 2021. Is that right?
Yes, it is. The only change that we had made was moving Director Frost into the chair of CO. And so if Director Frost and Director is correct, if you all are all okay with that, then he can proceed with presenting those items behind the CNO committee.
Okay, thank you. Director Friend?
Okay, item number 6, capital expenditures, discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Corey O'Brien dated December 29th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Mary?
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Item
Number 7, capital expenditures, discussed in committee, purchase of the building on South 76th Circle. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Mr. Zellers dated December 24th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Item number 8, acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Stephanie Henn dated December 27th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Item number 9, bids on materials and contracts during the month of December, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Sherry Meisinger dated December 30th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Item number 10, notice of purchases between $25,000 and $50,000 be placed on file, please. Item number 11, S&E, main extensions, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Corey O'Brien dated December 29th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Item number 12, Jim Bagley, you want to take that?
You bet. Wage and salary increases and ratifications. I move that we approve the items discussed in committee and outlined in Ms. Savine's memo dated December 23rd, 2020.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Now, Mark Mendenhall, do we have to have a motion on appointment of committees and a vote?
Generally, yes, we
Bad
have.
cold you have.
I know.
What'd you say, Mark? I got drowned out there.
Yes, generally we have moved to approve those in the past. One of the things I guess I would note is Ms. Mancuso and I were not entirely sure how the chair, vice chair decision would be played out. And so I would just point out that, Mr. McGowan, you are currently listed as the chair of 2 committees, and then Director Frost is listed as the chair of 1 committee. I think historically the chair of the board has had a decision to make on whether or not he or she would want to additionally chair committees And so if you'd like to visit that with Mary and I, we can certainly work to adjust that. If you're comfortable with doing that, then you can proceed. And yes, I guess I would recommend motions to approve and set those committees for 21 if you are all comfortable with the designations that we made.
Where's the list?
I haven't seen a list yet.
I haven't either.
I think it's in our binder.
It was emailed.
Not in mine.
Not in mine.
The committee list?
Nope.
Oh, that's a 2020 list, I'm sorry.
It was emailed out.
Okay.
Now I do.
Thank you.
Do you have it there, Jack?
Mary just passed it
Yeah,
out
I
now,
have
Mike.
Okay. I personally am comfortable keeping the chair committees, the two committees I have. That's fine. Jack, how about you?
That's Frost. Yeah, that's me. I'll take it. Comfortable.
Okay, so I think everything's set, Mark. Could I ask for a motion from somebody and a second to?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that was
There it is.
discussion.
I have a quick question. Mary, are you clear on the motion maker and the second before we move on?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mark Mendenhall, could you email me a list of those committee meetings and assignments, just so I have that as well? I don't think I received an email on it.
Yes, ma'am, I will tell you right now.
And maybe, Mark, if you copy the rest, send it to all the board members so we all have the current thing. Did you hear that?
What?
Mark Mendenhall, I said, okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Yes, sir, I'll send it to the entire board right now. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Other matters of district business for discussion? Anybody on the board have anything?
We did not vote on the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's vote, Mary, I'm sorry.
Ready?
Was there a second also?
Yes, there was.
Yeah,
Jack made a motion and there was a second on the committee
Tanya was
assignments.
the second.
okay.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Other matters of district business for discussion. Any board members have any matters? I have actually two matters to bring up. This board typically, in the past, has met on Wednesdays, and we had to change it to Thursday because of moving over to the Legislative Center. Does the board have any appetite to go back to regular meetings on Wednesday like we historically had done?
Yes.
Or do you want to leave it on Thursdays? I open it up for discussion.
Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
It's okay by me.
Wednesday's fine with-
Wednesday works for me.
Wednesday's good with me,
Yeah, I
Mike.
have no issue with either day. I could adjust to either day.
Can I?
Okay, I prefer the Wednesday. It's the middle of the week and everything, so it'd go back and maybe restore some part of our history and tradition that 2020 upset.
And Mike, I brought this up to either Mr. Mendenhall or Mr. Doyle, just so long as we have the flexibility to change a meeting, should we have to. But I think Wednesday, like you said, has always been the traditional meeting that day that we've met. So just as long as we continue that flexibility, I think Wednesdays are fine.
But I have a clear understanding, we will be meeting on Wednesday in February, the first Wednesday of February.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mark, Mark Mendenhall, did you hear Mr. Bagley's question? We do still have the flexibility to change if we have to, given proper notice.
Could I take that question, Chairman McGowan?
Sure.
This is Mark. Mark Doyle, President. Mr. Begley and I did discuss that, and there are times when our meeting dates, since they're on a day of the week, could fall on the 4th of July. They could fall on any holiday that's a date and not a day of the week. What we did do when we changed the statute, which prior to moving to Thursdays, the statute said that the Metropolitan Utilities District Board will meet the first Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. at 1723 Harney Street. So Mr. Kubat's lobbying efforts enhanced your abilities as a board to set your meeting date as long as it's once a month. however you please, with public notice, of course. So we have total flexibility, and Mr. Begley, you and I did discuss that, and there are certain times in particular where you would want to change that date. So the statute's been changed to our favor. Thank you for the question.
Mark, thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Good, and I would ask all the board members to kind of keep your eyes on the calendar, and if we see something coming up, bring it to the attention of the other board members at a meeting so we can make the proper decision as to when we're changing the meeting to. But right now, from what I hear, we're going to have our meetings on the first Wednesday of every month, subject to change as brought up by the board. The second thing I'd like to bring up is Mark Doyle. I would ask that you bring to the board next month at the February meeting a report on the status of the new building and plans, if any, of employees' plans to return to work in the new building. Who's working in the new building? What are your plans? What's the status? And I'd like to just see where we're at next month.
We'd be happy to do that. We have a plan in progress. I would say that it's not 100% set in stone because we are committed to a couple things. A deliberate and careful return to the office for those that work in a facility. And number two, we do not want to surprise our employees with short notice. We've committed to at least 30 days notice to our employees so they can make arrangements because their lives have changed so significantly with schools in, schools out, and all those sort of things. Thank you for the question. We'd be happy to bring that back next month. And there are some other things that we'd like to bring back to you as a board at your convenience. For example, the status of our water infrastructure replacement and our water main breaks for 2020 and what we hope to accomplish in 2021 with that blanket approval that you approved today for the next year's worth of water IR.
Okay.
So thank you for the question, Chairman McGowan.
Thank you. And then another request, I thought Steve Osmore and Bonnie gave a great update on the COVID, what we're doing as a company to make sure we're getting vaccines and everything else. I'd like another brief update from Bonnie and or Steve on that as we go forward, because each month now, with the vaccine rollout, and like Director Begley said, that things change quite a bit. I'd like to keep the board up to date as to what the plans are going forward for vaccinations and our COVID planning.
We will do that. Thank you.
And then lastly, I always ask Joe Shafford, by the next meeting, we'll have year-end financial reports, and I'd like a brief overview as to the impact COVID-19 had on our financials in 2020.
We'll be prepared to do that.
Well.
We certainly won't have audited financials available until well after that, but internally we'll certainly have financials prepared.
Sure, I understand that.
And we track our receivables on a regular basis. They're not always moving in the right direction, but with the CARES Act relief that we've been able to allow our customers to take advantage of, it's been very helpful. So yes. We will be ready for that as well.
Okay, thank you. And I know, Joe, that we won't have audited financials, but I'd like to kind of just know where our cash position is, what the impact of cash is, and like Mark said, receivables and things like that. So we can keep our hands and fingers on the financials as we move forward in this, hopefully, closing chapter of the COVID. Any other board have anything else? Any new matters?
I don't have a new matter, but there was a member of the public that addressed the board last month, and if there's a way to get an update to the degree that doesn't violate anybody's privacy, a general update for the record. Can you help with that, Mr. Mendenhall?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that you are referring to Mr. Claxton.
Yes, I am.
To the board. My understanding is that his concern had to do with a request to receive some retirement information I would describe it as miscommunication, and so ultimately the HR team had made further outreach to Mr. Claxton. My understanding, and Bonnie can jump in and correct me, my understanding is that Mr. Claxton did respond back to the manager of our benefits that does handle those retirement calculations, and that they have communicated. And so I feel that we have responded to his request.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for the response, Mark. Does anybody, hearing no other matters from the board, I'll ask the public, anybody from the public have any matters for discussion?
Chairman McGowan, there remains no public in attendance today.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I'll take a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
And if I can interject, the statute requires that the motion be specific as to the purpose, and so I would ask that the motion be made to go into closed session to discuss litigation, real estate, and personnel matters.
Okay, then I'll ask for the motion to go into closed session to discuss litigation, personnel, and real estate matters.
So moved.
Discussion.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion?
Well, how about second?
Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
So do the board members just stay on, Mr. Mendenhall?
Yeah, so I believe that we're able to stay on.
Bye, everybody.
If you can see on your screen,
Say that again? Who are you talking?
We're good to go.
Okay, we're good to go.
I would like to make a motion to return to open session.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Okay, we're now back in open session. Does anyone from the public wish to make a comment on any matter for the board?
Chairman McGowan, there still remains no public at the meeting today.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Okay, it'll be next meeting will be Wednesday, February 5th. I think it is.
Here is my phone.
Great.
Sir?
30, yeah.
Good, I'll get to it.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye, everybody.
Good to talk to you.
Talk to you. I went to high school with Marguerite Toledo. That was her mother and brother that was killed.